Hey guys, we're going to be jumping in and having a look at the big changes to New Zealand property investors. These have only just recently come out the last few days. We're going to be looking at the changes to the bright line test, so for capital gains, and also the interest deductions that we used to be able to make on any investment loan. And we'll finish up with looking at the new restrictions on the loan to value ratios. All these articles, I'm going to leave a link in the description below so you guys can dig into these a bit deeper if you wanted to. I'm just going to be looking at the key points so you guys can take away from this what you will. Drop in the comments below what you guys' thoughts are around all this. It is some pretty big moves, I feel, and it's sort of unfairly beating up the old property investors in New Zealand. In New Zealand, a lot of property investors sort of get blamed for the speculation in the property and sort of blowing up the property market in New Zealand. Look, I don't want to get into that side of it, but today we're just going to be looking at the changes of it here. So let's jump straight into it. So the bright line test extension, example of how much tax a property investor could pay. Let's jump straight into it here. So people who sell properties excluding investment, new builds and family homes within 10 years will be required to pay tax on gains they make. So this was previously 5 years. It was originally 2 years, then they brought it out to 5 years. If you bought a property past a certain date, then you would be entitled, you would have to pay a capital gains tax on that. So now they're bringing this out to 10 years, which is quite a substantial jump, which it's not going to affect you too much if you're playing the long term and you're looking at holding a property for longer than 10 years, but it's a long time to be holding an investment property for, especially now there may not be as much in it worth really sort of investing in property, I feel, with a lot of these big sort of things getting slammed on the poor old property investor. So let's scroll down and have a quick look. They've got a little example here. So let's just have a quick look at this example that they're using. So let's say use an example of an Auckland home purchased for the February median price sale of 1.1 million, assuming it sells for 1.65 million after 5 to 6 years, its value increased by 50%, let's say, and the personal income is $100,000. So the personal income is 100 grand, e.g. salary, wages, rental income, other investment income. Profit from the house sale, 550,000. So the total income for that taxable year would be 650,000. So the tax payable sold after April 1st, this is when this is all coming out, would be 233,620, which I think they've just dropped the zero off the end there. So a bit of a typo there. I should let them know about that. But so quite a big chunk of capital gains tax there to be paid if you're selling properties after the 1st of April. So let's just scroll down. There's another example here. Pretty much the same sort of thing, but they're including the costs of, let's say you did a renovation, it costs you 150,000, and then they're incurring the agent fees as well, with a total bright line profit of 350,000. Tax payable for a single person earning 100,000 income would be 131,700. So a couple of little examples there. That's the basics on the bright line test. Look, this doesn't affect me in a great way because I'm not sort of buying and selling a lot of properties in New Zealand, especially at the moment. I haven't been buying property in New Zealand for a good number of years now, so this doesn't really affect me too much. But drop it in the comments below, is this going to affect you in a big way? Are you constantly buying and selling sort of properties in New Zealand, especially if you're looking at flipping properties, doing a quick renovation and moving it on, then you would have to factor this in a lot, would change even the bright line test, from the 2 to 5 years, even 10 years now. So that's some big things to look out for there if you're looking at investing in property in New Zealand. This is another thing this is a huge thing here as well. What's happening to tax deductible interest on existing home loans? So this is a big negative here for anyone that's investing in property in New Zealand, I feel. So under the government's proposed housing rule changes, if you acquired a property before March 27th, 2021, you can still claim interest on pre-existing loans as an expense against your residential property income, but this will be phased out over the next 5 years. So they are stepping it out over the next 5 years, which is good, but still it's a pretty heavy blow, I feel. So for this last financial year, ending on March 31st, 2021, you still be able to claim 100% of any interest incurred on your loan that's attached to your investment property, and then they're scaling that back even up to September 30th, 2021, still 100%, and then from October 1st onwards to March 21st, 2022, 75%, and then it's slowly just getting scaled back there, as we can see, till April 1st, 2025 onwards. There'll be no deductions on any of the interest on any of your investment loans. So this is quite a big blow, especially if you're carrying a lot of debt. For me personally, it's not a big blow either because I don't have a huge amount of debt in New Zealand at the moment, so that's not too bad. But if this is the field that you're in and you're investing a lot of property in New Zealand and you're carrying a fair bit of debt, then this will affect you in a big way, I feel. But like I said, drop in the comments below what your guys' thoughts are on all this. It's pretty interesting stuff. I was only made recently aware of this today, actually, from Rex in New Zealand. So if you're watching this, cheers for putting this on to me, mate. Another article here about it, where landlords have sort of signed a petition. I think there's about 6,500 landlords across New Zealand that are getting together to try and sort of stop this, I think. But I'm not too sure how much traction they're getting on that, because it sounds like it's getting rolled out from where I'm sitting anyway. And then we're just going to look at the LVR restrictions. This is the banks, how much they can lend out to investors. This will also, I feel, slow things down a little bit as well. So let's have a quick look over the LVR restrictions. This is at a quick glance. This is off the Reserve Bank of New Zealand's website. Restrictions on loan-to-value ratios, LVRs. This is a big thing the banks use when it comes to lending, and they use this to sort of slow down the housing boom that New Zealand has been having the last number of years, which they've sort of brought it in. They sort of tweak the numbers a fair bit, but this is what's all happening from 1st of March 2021. So from 1st of March, most owner-occupiers will need a 20% deposit to secure a property. So it's not too bad. 20%, I think that's a fair amount, especially if you're a first-home buyer. It gives you a good sort of margin of safety there if you're coming in with a 20% deposit. So lenders can provide a maximum of 20% of new mortgages lending to owner-occupiers and LVRs greater than 80%, those with less than a 20% deposit. But this is where the investors sort of get tripped up on this one. So most investors, occupiers, will need a 30% deposit. This is from 1st of March 2021 as well, to secure a property. Lenders can provide a maximum of 5% of new mortgages lending to investors at LVRs greater than 70%. Look, I've never managed to get onto these 5%. I don't know what you need to qualify for one of these loans, but I've always sort of missed out on it and always needed to stump up the 30% or 40% of whatever the LVR ratio is at the time. But drop it in the comments below if you've managed to sort of get around that, and being one of the lucky 5% that doesn't need that required 30 or 40%, whatever it may be. And then so from 1st of May 2021 onwards, most investor occupiers will need a 40% deposit. So this is huge, especially if you're investing into the Auckland market, where the average price seems to be around the $1 million mark. Then, you're going to be stumping up 400 grand each time you're trying to buy a new property or pull equity out of a previous property or whatnot. So that's a pretty big demand, I feel. It was this a few years back, then they dropped it back. Now they're bringing it back in by the looks of things. So lenders can provide a maximum of 5% of new mortgage lending to investors at LVRs greater than 60%, those with less than 40%. But like I said earlier, I've never been available. These sort of loans haven't been available. I'm not part of the lucky 5%. But I'd be real curious to see if any of you guys have managed to get one of these loans where you haven't had to stump up the full 40% or whatever the potential, the LVR ratio was at the time. So that's just a real basic overview, guys. I highly recommend you jump in and check these articles out. That's just sort of skimming over the hard facts of it. I'd love to get to know your guys' thoughts on all this. Where do you sort of see it? Do you see it slowing the market down? Do you think the landlords are sort of getting, knocked around a fair bit unfairly on this? It's a pretty interesting topic, I feel. I'd love to see what your guys' thoughts are on it. With that said, we'll wrap that one up there.